We hope you all had a great weekend. Today, we have received a number of phone calls from doctors across the state who have received a letter via fax from Orthonet. And of course, that raises flags anytime you get information from Orthonet, because they're a pre-authorization organization for chiropractic claims dealing with two areas. One is some City of Chicago employee plans and some of the Indian Lake school district plans. And so it's really only those two subsets of plans. And you can always find that information by looking online and finding that Orthonet information. And so what we're looking at here, though, is really important. And so if you receive this letter in your Decatur, Springfield, Naperville, it really doesn't matter where you're located. What matters is whether or not you're seeing patients that are covered under these plans. In fact, we have some doctors down in Carbondale who are seeing students who are dependents of City of Chicago employees. So of course they have these particular Blue Cross Blue Shield plans that are being handled by Orthonet. And so that's important to know. It's not location specific, but instead it is plan specific. So when you get letters from Orthonet, know that first. Second, and that's why you're getting it, by the way. So second is this. If you look at the second page of this particular letter, you'll get an idea of what all they're talking about. In that, they list a pretty significant number of disclaimers in this, and the biggest disclaimer throughout there, it's repeated again and again and again, is they're looking at what information was submitted for a specific date of service, right? And so at the end of the day, that's all they're looking at, is that one particular date of service and the issues and items that go along with it. So when they do this study, if by chance you didn't send in, the intake form or things that weren't necessarily pertinent for that particular visit in order to get the pre-authorization approved, then it really isn't necessary. However, they listed it as one of the items that needed to be there, or at least they didn't find. And I think that's more important to understand. It's not necessarily that the information even had to be in the file when you submitted it for the approval. But instead, it's just they didn't find it when they did the review. So they're reviewing existing files that they already had that specifically dealt with pre-authorization in certain cases. And so it's a pretty limited scope study. They looked at 100 different files, and I'll give you an example. One of the items that they listed in here is the patient's full name, address, and contact information. Well, of course, all of you have that information in your file. And so it's just a matter, it may not have been included in that specific request. The request documentation probably only asks for patient name and member number, and to make sure that you have a specific identified person that you're seeking the authorization for. And that's the important part, right? So after that, then, as we look at all of this information and everything else, there may be a couple of items on here that may be important for you to incorporate within your notes. And so I think it's worthy of looking over, but also taking with its own level of grain of salt, if you will. All of the information is important in one form or another, and so you want to at least give it its due attention. But one, don't panic, because Orthonet, as far as we know and the information we have, is not expanding across the state of Illinois any further. And number two is the information they've listed here is a very, very limited scope study, and you very well may not be indicative of what your notes may look like specifically. So look at it, give it its due attention. If you're missing information, then definitely follow up. If you have further questions, of course, you're always welcome to give us a call. If you need information on any one of these types of items, there's a good chance that you could jump out to our website at ilchiro.org, do a quick search, nail all that down, and get your information you need straight online at your own convenience. Hopefully this helps you out, and we'll check you out next week. Thanks.